Alright guys, what's up? It's GR here, Dungeon Strength Conditioning. We're here in the dungeon office and wanted to crank a quick video for you guys today about lacrosse training. It's lacrosse season, been driving around, seeing athletes out there practicing and getting some of their games in. It's dark, I need to change the dang light bulbs in here. But like most sports, you poke around and do some research, and coaches and athletes have no idea what the heck they're doing when it comes to training their kids, training their athletes. And what it ends up causing is athletes really getting the short end of the stick when it comes to results. And that's not good for anybody. Like a lot of sports, coaches in lacrosse tend to, I'm going to say 99%. I mean, these guys are sport coaches. A lot of times, particularly around here, these are guys that are just, they coach other sports. They don't even coach lacrosse specifically. And so that may be a football coach or a health teacher or some volunteer that maybe played club softball in the past that is trying to teach these kids, A, how to practice and how to play the game, and B, teach them how to work out, how to train to get the most out of their season in the weight room. And that's, typically what that leads to, and I mentioned this in the blog, in the post, is a spaghetti on the wall method for training. So what does that mean? It means you sit here and you grab a bunch of spaghetti and you just keep throwing stuff up, and seeing what sticks. And that's number one, it's messy, and number two, it's certainly not optimal, and it's not going to get you guys in condition to really kick the crap out of your competition as you get to the end of your season and get into tournament time. So what I'm going to give you guys today is a little bit of guidance for how to train, how to get the most out of your season as you get here towards the end of the year, when you're getting ready for your tournaments and stuff. So number one, like most sports, like most coaches, they don't take care of the specific positions. And in lacrosse, just like in football, basketball to a lesser extent, baseball some, but certainly track and field and different events in track and field, you have different positions in lacrosse. And those positions all have different demands. So you wouldn't train an attacker like you would a defensive man or one of the midfielders or the middies. Now, you're going to have to forgive me if I don't know the exact lingo of the sport at this point. I've just been doing some research on the demands to try to help you guys out. But one of the first thing you're going to have to do to figure out how to train and how to get the most out of what you're doing is know what position you are and know what the responsibilities of that position are. So from the looks of it, attackers are going to be akin to, let's say, your football running back types. You guys have got to be ready to deal with your bigger defensive men. Those guys are typically your bigger players. They're very physical down there. So you've got to deal with the physical nature of the sport, and you got to be quick as hell. You got to be able to change directions. You got to be fast. You got to be coordinated, and you got to be able to move efficiently, quickly, and be strong enough to take the blows down there from the defensive men so that you can put some damn points on the board. Number two, if you're a midfielder, that's where you're going to be more like a basketball player. You're going to be running more throughout the whole game. You're going to have a greater aerobic demand, a greater demand on your aerobic system, and you're not going to have to do as much quick change direction and moving around as you would if you were an attacker. You're also not going to have to deal with quite as much collision. You're not going to have to worry about being as bulky as a defensive man. On the defensive side, again, these guys probably have the biggest demands of anybody else because they're going to be guys that are big and can move. So they got to be big enough to get some hits on those attackers, but they got to be quick enough so they can stay in the way, play good defense, and get the ball going the other way. So how does this change how we train for stuff? The basic demands, the weight room work, are basically going to be the same for your attackers and your midfielders. or at least very similar. You're going to want to focus on building that leg strength. I talk all the time about getting your squats and deadlifts strong, and that's the same here. You've got to get powerful in that posterior chain, your hammies, your glutes, your low back. You got to get those go muscles powerful. Don't got to worry so much about your show muscles, your biceps, your Jersey Shore. That's a terrible accent. I'm really bad at Jersey. I don't know why. Anyway, so you've got to get powerful in those legs. Your legs are the engine. They give you the horsepower to let you move fast, and help you move quickly and efficiently. And that's going to be for everybody. So attackers, middies, and your defenders, you got to have strong, powerful legs. It goes for each and every athlete. Now, as far as assistance work and things like that, getting into the upper body stuff, it's going to be probably more of a priority to really push that more with your defenders, just because they got to be bigger. They're going to be guys that are putting on the hits. And even though your attackers are going to be down there dealing with it and trying to avoid and coming in contact with some of that stuff, they're not going to really be laying people out like the defenders are. I really need to be focused more on quickness, change direction, and movement like that, as opposed to really being able to put the heavy hits on people. And then getting to more explosive work, getting into stuff that all you guys need to be doing. Med ball throws need to be a huge part of your program. So whether it's overhead slams, chest passes, different kind of throws, anything explosive, and working that body through a full range of motion without that deceleration that comes at the end of a lift. I'm not going to explain that in this article. You guys can keep working for that. Keep looking, do some research on your own. Long story short, med ball throws are going to be where it's at for you guys as far as explosiveness, being able to work the stick, things like that. Finally, when it comes to conditioning, this is where you're going to have the biggest difference between the positions. So your midfielders are going to need to train a lot more like basketball players. You're going to want to do some tempo work, some running at 75% or less of max speed. So if you typically run 100 yards in 12 seconds in your cleats and your game shoes, or barefoot, however you're going to do the tempo, doesn't really matter. Then you're going to want to take 25% of that and add it to that speed. So if you're a 10-second 100-yard dash, which most of you guys probably won't be if you haven't been working with me yet, then you're going to want to be running at between 12 and a half and 13 seconds for your 100-yard stuff. So 75% of max speed. We don't want to take away from the other training you're doing or from your practice and your game work. So we don't want to go too hard and tax your nervous system and whatnot there. But tempo runs are huge. I'll put a little recommendation down there and try to explain a little more cohesively, particularly for the midfield. I hit the dang button on this thing, stop the video. What I was saying, tempo runs are going to be huge, particularly for the midfielder guys. For your attackers and your defenders, I'd rather get you guys on things like prowler sprints, repeated prowler sprints with 30 to 40 seconds rest, really taxing that aerobic system, trying to pump up that anaerobic threshold, and then some shorter tempo work. So 40 to 60 yards of tempo work just to get that oxidative system working more. Again, you don't have to know what that means. Just know that you're doing the right thing. And I'll put a little bit of that stuff down below in the post. Just general guidelines. 10-yard heavy prowler pushes with about 30 to 40 seconds between reps, and keep going until you can't hit your sprint time on that prowler sprint. Excuse me. Then on the tempo, again, we're going to use the same guideline, 75% or slower. So if your 40-yard dash is 4.6, you're basically going to want to add a second to that and run it between 5.6 and 6 seconds. It's about 75%, give or take. and you're going to do repeats of about 10 to 12 reps, depending on where you're at and what your fitness level is. It's not going to be perfect, to be honest with you guys. I don't know where you're at, and you can't just give general prescriptions that are going to be perfect for everybody. If anybody tells you differently, they're lying. What I will say is you guys will be way ahead of the curve, far and beyond the curve as far as what other players are doing. If you focus on strength of the posterior chain, get brutally strong in your squats and deadlifts, do some assistance work, working some single leg stuff, weighted lunges, things of that nature, upper body work. To some extent, you don't got to focus on your bench press. It's not going to be the most important movement in lacrosse unless you're a defensive man, and then it can be a little bit more of a priority. Still, lower body stuff is going to be big time. Med ball throws, get that explosive stuff in, and then your tempo, longer runs between 80 and 100 yards for your middies, and then shorter tempo plus some prowler sprints for your defenders and your attackers. This is under the assumption that you guys are practicing right now and getting a lot of sport-specific work and change of direction stuff, getting that quickness working on your own during practice multiple times per week. Excuse me. If you guys want a specific program and want to come somewhere where you can get some real hardcore training in and kind of cut the BS and have somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, you can click the link below or copy and paste my email. It's hofftraining@gmail.com, and we can set you up with the free trial and get you on the way to kicking butt during the end of this lacrosse season. Get you stronger, faster, better change direction, just better at your sport. I don't want you guys to have the embarrassment of losing like all too many athletes do just because of bad coaching or bad programming when it comes to strength conditioning. So with that, Dungeon Strength Conditioning, GR Hoff, peace out, work hard, and good luck with this season. Lacrosse.